Hey guys, how's it going? Value Venture Investing here today. So today we're going to be talking about Virgin Galactic. Yes, SPCE, and as of late, yeah, it's been getting crushed about $1 per share. We're looking at a market cap now about $415 million. That'll become slightly relevant as we get going here. After Q1 earnings here, we're down about 3.85% after hours, so we're below $1. So we're going to get into these financials today. Not too much that is super new or that surprising, but there's definitely some new information. In terms of Q1 2024, we had about almost $2 million in revenue. I think they said $2 million in revenue. It was $1.985 million in revenue. I also did this on a year-over-year basis. We got Q2, Q3, Q4 of last year, and then Q1 of this year, and then the Q1 of the year ago, so we can look on a year-over-year basis. I don't know how relevant that is with a company like this that's not really has any seasonality aspect to it, but I did it anyway. So up about 400% year over year, down from last quarter. So kind of in line with the other quarters there. Net income, a loss of $102 million, which is kind of in line with what's been happening the last couple of quarters. Of course, is down less of a loss, 34%. Cash is down slightly, about 11% year over year. It's been going down a little bit, $832 million, so that's dropped a bit, but of course that's to be expected. What's going on? So they went over the agenda here. First of all, they talked about commercial operations. They talked a lot about celebrating VSS Unity because, as we're going to talk about in the next slide here, this is going to be the last flight coming up here soon before they go into their Delta class. They talked a little bit about VMS Eve. That'd be the mothership. We will talk about that a little bit as well. And they talked about the progress again of the Delta class spacecraft. And then went into the financial overview and then the Q&A. So in terms of commercial operations here, so again, like I said, the big kind of news was we were talking about last quarter. There's going to be Q1, Q2, so it's looking like it's going to be somewhere in Q2 here. That we are going to be seeing the last Galactic 7 next month here. So it's coming up here pretty soon. So that's what they're talking about here when they're saying they're celebrating the final commercial flight for VSS Unity. And then we're going to have that lag for a while. We're going to talk about how much revenue that's going to generate for them. It's a blended manifest of research, mission, and private astronauts. So they're saying it's going to yield an average price per seat in excess of $800K. There's going to be 3 private astronauts as well. And then here they started talking about the next mothership. They're going to say that's going to come into operation in 2028 there. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with that. Again, they talked a little bit about the Delta progress. They like to do this in the last several conference calls. This is a door. I just thought I'd show you guys the examples there. They talk about their final assembly operation that's in Phoenix. They're going to be taking possession of this in the summer. So this is going to be helping them ramp up, build those first 2 Delta aircraft. And this is a mock-up, a little sneak peek of what the interior is going to look like on the new Delta class. So that's why they're spending, quite a bit of money. They're bringing through a lot of cash here. So this is going to be really quite soon. And again, this is in Phoenix, Arizona. This one, they talked about the Iron Bird. I'm not going to really touch on this much. This is basically for the Delta ground testing. And this is something that they basically touted as being, testing to get problems before they're in the air type of thing. Just kind of more, in my opinion, sort of rhetoric in terms of what's going on. And then they're going, again, talking about basically the building production spaceship. So basically they talk about the design, the tooling and development, parts fabrication. Then they're going to be assembly. So we're getting into that with the Delta here probably soon in this area. Ground and flight testing, and then commercial service. And again, they reiterated that the first 2 Deltas are going to go into commercial service in 2026. So a little ways away. But what is that going to mean for the company in terms of financials? Okay, we went through this again. I believe this is kind of in line with what they talked about last quarter. So the flight assumptions for Eve and the 2 Deltas. So again, Eve is the mothership, and the 2 Delta class spacecrafts that aren't even out yet. They're saying that Eve, the mothership, is going to have weekly flights of 3. So that'll give them annual space flights about 125. The ticket price is going to be about 600K, and the revenue per flight is going to be about 3.6 million. So the financial opportunity, they're saying, is the annual revenue run rate about $450 million given those assumptions, right? And the contribution margin of 75%. So if you go back to the first slide here, I mean, if they can do that within the next couple of years, yeah, I mean, you could be having more revenue than the market cap, so that could potentially drive the stock up. But I think we're a little ways out. Of course, at least 26 or 2026 or beyond, right? So yeah, basically they're going to reinvest, they said, those additional profits as well to further drive the fleet and generate more growth, because they still anticipate each spaceport will generate $1 billion annually. So that's a pretty big jump. What are we looking like, 2030? Who knows, right? So I think that's kind of the problem that we're seeing right now is we're not seeing much. In terms of next quarter, I'm going to get into this here. We're looking at about $3.5 million in Q2, which would be next quarter in revenue. And then we're not going to be seeing anything until the Delta come on. So yeah. Anyway, so the financial results that they had here, they said revenue of $2 million. Of course, it wasn't quite $2 million. That's probably, oops, sorry guys. That was probably non-GAAP. That was compared to $0.4 million in the prior year. Expenses were $113 million compared to $164 million in the prior year. Spaceline operation expenses were $23 million, and keep in mind, watch my other video if you don't know about this. They've kind of changed some of their accounting with this. They've moved R&D, some of that into spaceline operation, and also selling general administrative was significantly less. So I was happy to see that they've cut that. So it had a net loss of $102 million compared with $159 million in the prior year. We talked about that before. Adjusted EBITDA of negative $87 million compared to negative $140 million the prior year. Free cash flow of $126 million. Negative that would be $126 million compared to $139 million loss in the prior year period. And I believe that was right around there. Guidance. Again, they diluted, not a huge amount, but they raised $7 million. And we'll look at that in the financial statement so you can see exactly what that looks like. Just a couple things here I wanted to mention. Pretty much what we expected. Like I said, it wasn't $2 million, it was $1.985 million, but on a year-over-year basis, that's quite significant. We've seen this pivot here between spaceline operations and research and development, so that's something to keep in mind, just how those have switched. And it was nice to see the SG&A drop quite a bit as well, from $50 million to $27 million last quarter. It was also kind of interesting to see they got a little help here from the interest income was significantly more because of interest rates, and their interest expense was hardly changed, right? So I guess that's a benefit of having a strong balance sheet in respect to how much cash they have, right? In terms of their statement of cash flows, what they're doing with their cash flows, interesting. I saw that. I think this was with Apple too. Like, spend a lot of money on purchasing marketable securities, $161 million versus $83 million. And of course, here we have the $7 million. It was actually about $7.27 million dilution, where they issued some common stock to gain some cash. So this is what they usually represent it as here. Again, $867 million is slightly off because they don't include restricted cash. I'm not actually seeing this before, but they actually have a little note here. It includes the $35 million of restricted cash. So we've seen that drop a little bit. Free cash flow for this quarter, like I said, was a negative $126 million. And for Q2, they expect it to be in the range of a negative $110 million to negative $120 million. So overall, the quarter was basically what I expected. Stock has fallen a lot. But until we get those Delta classes out, like those Delta class spaceships that start generating some revenue, it's going to be really hard pressed to see the stock really do anything, in my opinion. But we'll just have to wait and see. My opinion hasn't changed on the company. I'm still just holding it, not adding, obviously, and just kind of waiting to see what happens with it. I've got a very small position. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. It really helps. And I will see you guys in the next one.